Welcome to Storytime with Alanna Percival. Today we are being joined with Pierre Roustan. I hope I am saying his name correctly
You said it
because
correctly.
thank you so much. This is an
You said it
amazing
correctly.
author. He is a horror author, and I am really excited because you may have known him from some of his previous works, being The Cane Letters, Chimera Falls, and Malumnus. I should correct myself.
Um,
Today, I would like to interview Pierre and let him invite himself to give a little representation of who he is.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. It's super fun. Like, I can't believe you're up this early doing this for like us authors, us indie authors. So, like, thank you so much. Um, I am a published author. I was trad, but now I'm indie. I'm an indie author that writes mystery, thrillers, urban fantasy, dark romance, even some young adult work as well. But of course, horror is probably my main genre. And I've been writing since I want to say 2005. It's been a while. I've been writing just short stories and poetry and books in general since I was a kid. But I officially got published in 2009 through an East Coast publishing house, which is now defunct, unfortunately, due to health reasons of the editor-in-chief. And that's when I went indie. And the books that I have, I actually do have copies of the books. This is the can letters right here,
Very cool.
which is book one. And it was originally published in 2009, but then I republished it in 2015 as an indie author. And so everything you see is all me. And this is book two, which is Chimera Falls. And this is book three, which is entitled Malamunis.
Malamunis.
Yes.
Thank you for that correction.
No worries. Everyone's like, whoa, that's a wild title, and then there's like a story behind that title, which I can definitely get into. I have an upcoming novel coming out on Halloween. And I do have a copy of that as well. It's an ARC copy, if I can get it. And it is called Sealed by Stone.
Very cool. And we get to see it for the very first time. That is so exciting. I love the cover.
Yeah, you can see there's already annotation stickers because the wife, wanted to annotate it and she read it for me. She was essentially my first ARC reader. But yeah, it's not live yet, but it will be. And pre-orders are ready for it currently now, and will continue being ready for it until it launches on Halloween. So it is a spin-off of the thriller series. It is also the first in a new trilogy. And it is arguably the scariest piece of literature that I've written so far.
Oh, very cool. And you
So
said so pre-orders are available currently, and those are on your website, I believe. And your website was,
medium.com/ Pierre hyphen Roustan, all lowercase. That is my website. It's just on Medium, and I absolutely adore medium.com. So that's where I'm housed. And I have my own kind of bookshop there where I do bundles. But you will find the promo link for Sealed by Stone is the first thing you see when you go on the site. And you can just order, and there's a little something spicy included for any of those pre-orders as well. And it would be available literally on Halloween.
you're dropping Seal by Stone on Halloween. That feels almost perfect. Was this planned to heighten the spookiness of the book, or was it a happy little accident?
I think I honestly planned it that way. I really, really did. Initially, I wanted to publish Sealed by Stone last year on Halloween, but it was initially a Kindle Vella work. I don't know if anyone remembers what Kindle Vella was, but on Amazon, they had a little section called Kindle Vella where it was serialized storytelling. And I thought it was a great platform. And all of a sudden, this idea popped in my head. And it was an idea of a nun, a Catholic nun, and demons, and referencing a lot of what I really enjoyed in horror, which was like exorcisms and The Exorcist and the exorcism of Emily Rose, and and so I thought of the book, and I was like, okay, let's try Kindle Vella. Amazon then closed down Vella. It didn't seem to work as well as it did, like overseas because serialized storytelling was so huge overseas. So I had to download my work. I was about, I don't know, 10 chapters in or something like that, and they were like episodes.
Hmm.
And I was like, I need to just finish the book. And it kind of threw me a little bit because I was planning on releasing it last year. And so I just finished the book just as a book and not releasing them as episodes. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to plan it for next year. I'll plan it for next year, give myself enough time. And now here we are. We're almost like a month away, and the book is going to launch. And I'm like flipping out, even though it's like my fourth or fifth book that I've published so far.
That's very cool. That's really cool to know about Kindle Vella. I've actually never heard of that before.
Yeah,
Um,
it
Definitely
doesn't
gives,
exist anymore.
yeah. It kind of just
Mm.
the way you explained it kind of gives me the vibes of like fictionpress.net, where you are able to create your own fictions and put them out in an episodic fashion, but in a more published format.
Yeah, it's like Wattpad. Yeah,
Amazon version of Wattpad.
correct. Yeah, they were trying to tackle that sort of format. And honestly, it did well. There were really, really good authors on there that were putting out some really, really interesting episodes. It just didn't, live up to the kind of potential that Amazon wanted,
Hmm.
unfortunately. I thought it was great, but we're talking about Amazon here. So Amazon wants like the kitchen sink.
Yeah, they want everything. What aspect of this story leans hardest into the Halloween spirit? Is it haunted spaces, rituals, or something new?
Oh my God. I want to say haunted spaces.
Haunted spaces.
Yeah, haunted spaces. Repeat, that question again, just make sure.
What aspects of the story lean hardest into the Halloween spirit?
Okay, 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 okay. Haunted spaces, definitely.
Yeah, and is that to do with it being a Catholic nun and demons and all of those fun?
Yeah, pretty much. I wanted to really access the religious horror aspect of it also, like, The Exorcist and the Nun. A lot of people think of The Nun, which was kind of one of my favorite films as well to really, really lean into as far as like the horror aspect of it all. And but there was a certain aspect that was kind of missing in a lot of those pieces of literature that talk about exorcism, and I wanted to explore that. It just popped in my head. Like, I know a lot of authors identify with this, where maybe you're in the middle of a thriller series, or maybe you're in the middle of some series that you're currently writing. You need to write book three or book four or book five, and all of a sudden an idea pops in your head, and it doesn't go away, and you have to write it. That's what Sealed by Stone is. It's that book that could not go away. It's the book that just would not leave my mind, and I had to write it. And It really did access some intense ideas as far as exorcism goes.
That's very cool. I am really excited because I love a good paranormal, religiously spiritual horror myself.
Yeah.
That's always one that sticks with me. Is there a reason why you dive into so much of the religious horror in a lot of your right works?
Um, in general, it definitely, speaks to my faith, which I know this like blows people away. Although I'm most of the, I'd say 99% of the time, people are like Christian horror. That's interesting. That's what they always tell me. But yes, I am a professing born again Christian. And here I am writing about vampires, werewolves, demons, ghosts, and all that. I lean heavily on it because, honestly, growing up as a kid, not only did I like the horror genre, and just all the tropes that, really delve into the human condition, like lycanthropy and vampirism. There's so much in the lore that, really speaks to us as human beings, but then it gives us that opportunity to fight, against it, and to, it's literally that classic good versus evil, except most of the time it's not evil in front of you, it's evil within you.
Hmm.
And that's that element that is always so compelling to me. And it really does speak to my faith as well, because most of the time it's the evil inside us that we're fighting and not the evil outside of us, and you'll see a lot of those themes in my work.
Absolutely. I've definitely seen a lot of those themes come as I was doing research for this interview and seeing a lot of the themes that you have played upon within your work. And it definitely spoke to me also because our family is also a born again Christian family, which is ironic because we have a metal channel. So we listen to a lot of metal music on our other channels. So it's always
Yes.
really interesting when you're looking at those different
With
sides.
breaking down the walls or breaking down the stereotypes. I mean, nothing, nothing against, those who are, be called proper churchgoers or anything like that.
Is there
But there
really
are no
such a thing?
stereotypes. Is there really? No, not anymore. Not anymore. I don't think so. Like you can almost not tell by looking at someone like, what their faith is. You can only tell by their actions and, how they treat you. And that's basically, there's nothing else. How they dress doesn't matter.
Hmm.
What they eat doesn't matter. Like it's about how you're treating other people and
Hmm.
what you think of, the other world. I believe that there are demons. I believe that
Hmm.
there are dark spirits. And I want to battle them because that's where our battle is. It's not in the flesh, it's in the spirit.
Absolutely. I think that really ties into Halloween when the time of the veil is at its thinnest point.
Oh yes. Yes. No, I am a big fan of Halloween. It's probably it often is neck and neck with Christmas. I adore Christmas. But there's this Halloween. I mean, I think it's because it's the first, holiday we always get into. So it almost ends up being
Mhm.
like first in line. Like I'm like, yay, Halloween, and then I'm like, okay, now we have Christmas. So yeah,
I'd love to see a Christmas horror story that you have in the works, if you ever have one in the works, because that would be a ton of fun.
I have a young adult urban fantasy that's Christmas themed that I will be working. Yes.
Very cool. As I'm like
And
pulling out for more spoilers.
yes, and there will be elements of horror in it. I kind of pull from all sorts of influences that were always touching to me, like those claymation Christmas,
Hmm.
animations, shoot, I can't remember the name. Those the Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, and the Polar Express. Uh, even what is it called? Shoot, uh, Charles Dickens, A Christmas Story, or
Hmm.
I think that Christmas Carol. I'm sorry.
Christmas
I'm
Carol.
thinking about Ralph and the leg lamp. That's the wrong one. No, I'm thinking of A Christmas Carol because there's a lot of darkness in there. There's a lot of like trying to, face, your demons and the ultimate redemptive story. And so a lot of those I really pull for this urban fantasy, which I'm nowhere close to getting, through that one yet, but that is coming. And that one is coming.
For readers who are just discovering you, what is your elevator pitch for Sealed by Stone without giving too much away?
Okay. It's a challenging one, honestly, because there are like so many interwoven things in the book. But of course, I if you really, really enjoy The Exorcist and Stephen King's It and Dante's Inferno, and if you've seen the film The Cell with Jennifer Lopez as a very, very classic, older film, lots of imagery, very, very intense visuals. That's what Sealed by Stone is. It takes the exorcism out of the bedroom and you go inside the mind of the possessed and you experience what it's like for this person to be possessed. And that's what I wanted to explore. It's already terrifying when you see someone who is possessed. You see them on the chair and they're tied up and they're gnashing their teeth and they're turning their heads and maybe they're vomiting or whatever. All those cool, things that we used to see from William Blatt, who wrote The Exorcist, and of course, the adaptations, the film adaptations. They're terrifying. What we don't see is what's in here. What are they
Mhm.
dealing with in there? We don't see that. That's scarier to me, is what's going on in here. And I want to explore it in a very fictional way. And it's kind of terrifying in this fictional way because, like I said, it is a spin-off of the three books here. Like it's a spin-off of these. It's a
Okay.
particular demon that exists in book two, and let's just say if this demon really did exist, we'd be screwed. Like we'd be all screwed if this kind of demon existed, and maybe he does. I don't know. But it was like a what if? What if this kind of demon does exist? Like, and what would we do? How would we survive? And that's in book two of, Chimera Falls. I take it further with Sealed by Stone. And in the chronology, Sealed by Stone is somewhere in between book two and book three.
Okay, that would make
It's
sense.
That's where it is, and it is the first book in a trilogy titled the Seal of Solomon trilogy. I already in the works of book two. I'm hoping to slate a release for 2027. I'm moving pretty quickly because a lot of people are now chomping at the bit and they're like, "We want more, we want more," and I'm like, "Okay, okay, okay, okay." I gotta like keep writing. So,
You're like, I can only write so
yeah,
fast.
but it's good. It's totally good. But I think that was way longer of an elevator pitch than it needed to be. So I'm sorry.
You're fine, absolutely fine. My next question, without spoilers, who's the character you think readers will latch onto most and why?
Soraya Stone.
Soraya Stone.
She is the main character. It's written in first person. She has a lot of trauma. There are a couple triggers in the book. When it comes to horror, like you have to really, really touch the disturbing and the stuff you don't want to see, you don't want to think about. It's very, very important, especially when dealing with those issues. So she's got issues. She's been dealing with, but she also has this problem, and demons don't want to leave her alone. In particular, one demon that doesn't seem to want to leave her alone, but it opens up a Pandora's box of other nightmares, including one much, much scarier demon called the Chimera Minion. And she gets onto this journey with Father Adam uh, in trying to figure out, why this demon is calling her out. Because there was an exorcism in India, and the demon actually mentioned her name, which has never happened before, in the School of Exorcism, in the Vatican. They're like, why is this demon calling out for you? We may need you to go with Father Adam to figure out why this is happening. And she was already fascinated with exorcisms and nuns, the sisters, of any convent, they're not allowed to actually practice exorcism. They're not allowed to do any of that kind of stuff, but she studies it. She's fascinated with it. And a lot of it is entailed due to her trauma. But in general, it's relatively healthy. It turns bad, though. It turns very, very bad. As she goes into a downward spiral of, exploring this further and seeing these exorcisms right in front of her, right in the center, of her reality. Uh, and she can't get away from it. And it seems to follow her around. But the question then comes, about like, what is this seal of Solomon that they keep talking about? And it has something to do with her, but she has no idea what it is. Uh, Nightmares ensue. They get worse and worse. And I will mess you up. That's basically it. I will just mess you up.
Awesome. I'm sure our readers are going to love that, as I've known from many readers, being able to be messed up by the author and then be demanding more is usually what they're looking for.
Right, especially when it's horror like this. I would classify it as psychological horror about demon possession, is what it is.
My next question for you, without too many spoilers, what was the hardest scene in Sealed by Stone to write, emotionally, thematically, or just logically?
I want to say it would be the climactic scene, like, close to the end, where you realize like what's really happening. That was the hardest scene to write because that was kind of like going all out, you know. Uh, pushing the curtain back and revealing everything was both terrifying and liberating to write. There's a lot of family themes in Sealed by Stone between a mother and a daughter that are very, very key in the book that many people would probably relate to. Um, and there's some emotion to it as well. Uh, it was cathartic, not me personally, but people that I know that have experienced things like this, and to write it out was cathartic for me because it allowed me to immortalize them in my work.
Hmm.
They are valid, they are important, they will never be forgotten.
Hmm.
And that's why we write these works like this. Super important.
I love how you say immortalization within your writing because I find a lot of times when you are expressing yourself in such a emotionally raw way, it is with writing, and it kind of is an immortalization of your emotions. Do you ever
Yeah,
find that with writing as well?
absolutely. It very much is therapy for me too. When I write a novel or I write a short story, I'm taking a piece of myself and, putting it out there, and then somehow magically it comes right back to me. It just, it gets put back into me and my psyche and my mind and my spirit. And it's much wholer than, it used to be. It's almost like, writing it, sort of patches the holes, but not with just, materials, or something that it almost brings those pieces back as they were before, life happens, before
Hmm.
problems happen. It brings them all back. The ability to create, I think, is absolutely magical. It is definitely a God-given gift. The fact that we
Absolutely.
can create these stories and create these characters and they come to life, um, builds our souls up. Probably that's why it's not very easy to do. It's really, really not, and that's why some people think they can't do it. They can. It just takes a lot of endurance. It takes a lot of endurance and will, and uh, you have to be able to just withstand the pain that sometimes comes with writing things like this.
Hmm.
But it is so cathartic once you finish it. It feels liberating and it feels so good when you finish a work that speaks miles in human resonance. You feel like you've come so far, and you've spoken to millions of people as a result. It is truly a miracle.
It truly is. When you are writing, because it is so raw and you're writing so much about yourself, have you ever written a passage that has haunted you in particular or stuck in a way that you've had to take a step back and be like, oh my God,
Oh,
did I
yes.
really just write that?
Yeah, that happened several times with Sealed by Stone. It does happen, quite a bit too with the thriller series as well. They are thrillers, so I've been told like they're not terribly scary, but they definitely grab you by the coattails and pull you in so many different directions. It's very fast paced, but there are elements in it that really, really, tug at my heart. Sealed by Stone just amps it up like by 10, you know. Every chapter or almost every chapter I've written of Sealed by Stone, I've had to close my laptop and go for a walk, to actually clear my brain because some of the images are very, very intense and a lot of the fears that we have as kids, are kind of in it, which is kind of scary. There's a scene that, I especially, is burned in my brain, a scene of a crucifixion, like a statue, of Christ hanging on the cross. And magically he comes down and he's no longer Christ. Now he's this kind of manifestation of an ugly Christ that's terrifying. And he's got teeth and he's made of wood and it's cracking everywhere. And he's lanky and he's tall and it's scary to see that kind of thing happen. You're taking something that's so pure and you completely destroyed it into something so horribly evil and is destroying church pews and seats and breaking down all sorts of imagery. causing so much disruption, so much chaos. Thankfully, it's a dream. It's a dream in the book, but that's one scene that was absolutely utterly terrifying for me to write. Is a scene of all those images that I hold on to for some sort of sense of, shield, in the spiritual sense. And all of a sudden I flipped it. I turned it around and now it's not a shield anymore. It's a demon,
Hmm.
that looks like, or once kind of looked like, Christ Jesus. Scary. It's very, very scary.
Absolutely terrifying to take the thing that was once your sanctuary and your solitude and turned it into a blade and turned upon yourself in a way.
Yes. And that was kind of random too, but I wanted something that, when you look at things like statues or you look like at dolls, I mean, we see that all the time, like Annabelle, Chucky, all of those, that inanimate object, you have to wonder if there's a soul in there or if it's possessed or something like that. I mean, that kind of
Hmm.
stuff, really, really speaks to our fears. People are scared of dolls. People are scared of statues, especially the ones that always seem to look like they're looking at you, like
Hmm.
that plays with your fears, and to see it just come into animation. We see that a little bit with things like, The Exorcist, because, one of the images that burns in my brain is the image of the Virgin Mary and the tears of blood coming, out of her eyes, like, and she's just a statue. And it's so terrifying to see those holy images completely ripped apart and put back together to be something ugly.
Hmm.
And to then imagine, a statue just come to life and come down and start chasing you all over a church is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Absolutely. My next question for you, having written across horror, thriller, and fantasy, how do you keep the voices distinct without losing your core style?
That is a good question. Very good question. I've had, some kind of training here and there, as an author, and this is nothing to say that, if you're an author, you don't necessarily need like a bachelor's degree in creative writing or anything like that. Um, you just have to have this access to the character, and how they speak, and of course you have to document it and sketch it out, and know how they speak, and then you have to get into their mind. That's literally all you have to do. Um, Keeping it all together, it's I think it helps having a marketing background, because as a content marketer, copywriter, I have to look at like the pain points of a client. I have to look at the goal of the client's customers and what they want to solve, and then I have to speak to that, speak to that specifically in their language. I have to know how they speak, why they're speaking the way they do, and then I have to communicate it in that way. So I take that mantra, I take that adage that's pretty typical in content marketing, and I apply that to being an author. When working with so many different characters, I have to constantly remind myself, this is the character that is speaking right now, and I have to speak in that way, and then I have to write it down and be that character. And then now I step outside of the character, I'm in another character. And this is where you have scene breaks and chapters and all that. So I do write often in third person, omniscient limited, which means I'm only going to be in the head of one character. I'm not I, and the character is he or she. So I'm writing in he or she, but I'm in that character's head. And so
Hmm.
a lot of what I'm going to write is going to sound like that character until I get into another character's head. So I'm not going to be in multiple characters' heads, at the same time, because it just gets way too confusing. So I'm only going to be in one character's head. So we really, really get to relate to that character as a reader. I want the character to feel, I want the reader to feel everything the character is feeling. This is, super important when it comes to horror too, is you're not trying to scare the reader.
No.
You're trying to scare the character.
Yeah.
The character is going to be put through all this stuff, so that character is going to be terrified, and you need to make sure that as an author, that they are experiencing that terror. The reader then experiences it, and it's organic. They're terrified by the ambiance. They're terrified by the environment. They're terrified by what the character is thinking, feeling, and that's what's horror. That's horror for me.
That's awesome. That's such a great way to look at horror. I've definitely always thought of it as scaring the reader, but I like how you say no, it's scaring the character and the reader is there for the ride.
Pretty much. I mean, it's kind of simplistic saying there for the ride, but at its core, that probably is it. But at the same time, not only are they on the ride, but they're also being forced to get out of the car, and they're forced to have to walk right up to those scary things. It's not going to be just at arm's length. It's going to be right in
Hmm.
your face. Um, but yeah, you're correct. It's really easy to think, oh, we're trying to scare the reader because it's the book's for the reader. And I think a lot of authors, myself included, often fall into that trap of I'm writing this to scare the reader. No, I'm not. I'm writing this to scare my character. I'm writing this to scare myself, and it's got to be things that are, very scary to me. Like I remember reading a foreword from Stephen King on Salem's Lot, his book Salem's Lot. And this is honestly probably why I don't think he's ever written another vampire novel ever again, because in his words, he said, they fucking scared me. Like, yeah, vampires are terrifying to him. And they should be. Like the lore is absolutely terrifying. And it exists in every culture.
It really
Mhm.
is. So, my next question to end off the previous segment and start this next segment.
Right.
If Sealed by Stone were adapted into a film, what would one scene you'd fight tooth and nail to make sure it was exactly as you had written it?
Man, that is a good question. God, yeah, I think it would have to be that climactic scene. It's a scene of where everything is revealed and the rug has been pulled out, the curtain has been pushed away, and you can see the truth and all of it. Um, Maybe the scene after, actually. I want the scene after to be absolutely accurate, at least in terms of like the vision, the visual, and the emotion, the feeling. I probably fight tooth and nail to make sure. And most likely it would be pretty accurate. They probably would do it very accurately. They'd read it and go, okay, we need to do it this way. I'm like, okay, good. That's what I thought. I mean, but like if there was some nuance or some detail, I'd be like, can you make it like this? Can you make it like that? I want that to be there. That's perfect. I'd be very meticulous probably with that one scene is where you go, whoa, what just happened? Okay, that's where it needs to be. Oh my God, like, and that's that, wide open, like, oh, scene, that's what I want to be like absolutely accurate.
That makes sense. Because once you have that climactic part, the way that it comes together is going to be so important. And so to make
Mhm.
sure that that is done exactly as it is written, to make sure that the viewer, the reader fully understands and is able to embody that climax, really would be that standing point. So I think that's a great scene to choose to make sure that it is written tooth and nail as exactly as shown.
Right.
You have been a traditionally published author. You've mentioned that before. You've
Mhm.
also are an
Yep.
indie author. Can you walk us through your publishing journey? What drew you to independence and how has it shaped your career thus far?
I was initially published in 2009. An editor-in-chief of a publishing house over on the East Coast got wind of my work. It was the Cane letters. Nothing else was published, and she wanted to personally take it on. She was my friend. She was my colleague. She was my editor. She was also the owner of the publishing house. I mean, it was her baby. I never met her. I only spoke on the phone with her. She edited and she helped me edit as well. Like, I mean, it wasn't just red marks everywhere, it said, take this out, and I need you to put this in or whatever. She really was very intimately involved in my editing process, and I thank her a million times for it. She's actually in my author dedication
Hmm.
in book one. She got cancer, and she called me to break the news to me before I was going to be interviewed. And I think it was after I published book two. Uh, and she said she had something to tell me. She said, I have cancer and I'm going to have to be stepping away from my role very soon here. And I was floored. I was heartbroken. It sucked. It
Hmm.
sucked hearing that. I think about 8 times out of 10 or 7 times out of 10, I talk about it and then I start bawling my eyes out, like, and the other times it's just random, like I'm totally fine. But I was kind of mad at her too. I'm like, I'm going to be interviewed in 10 minutes. You're telling me this now. Like my brain is just going to be thinking, oh crap, I'm losing my editor. This sucks. I can't do this. And she said things that I'll probably never forget to this day is like, you can do this. You got this, she said. And I went, okay, fine. What's going to happen to you? And to this day, I don't know where she is. She disappeared and the house folded. So it's heartbreaking. And I tried finding, her name anywhere. She lived in Maryland. I think she lived in Maryland, and that's where the publishing house was based out of too. No one knows what happened to her, and it could have easily have been like the cancer took her over. Like she went, into the hospital and you just didn't hear from her ever again.
Mm.
Which sucks, and it probably happens way more often than it should to lots of people. And that's often why many businesses fold too, probably. So I was left with a choice, what do I do? I have to go through all this again, find an agent, try to find another editor and build a relationship with that editor. And I was like, screw that. No, I'm not doing this again. It's not going to be the same. I was that close to her that I didn't think, I could have the same kind of empowerment, with anybody else. And maybe I could have, but at that time, I was so heartbroken, I didn't think it was going to happen, you know. So I decided I'm going to do what she, said. The last words, she gave me were, "You got this. You can do this."
Hmm.
I did exactly that. I'm going to do this myself, and that's when I became indie. I republished the Cane Letters and Chimera Falls in 2015 and 2016, and then I officially wrote book three and published that all on my own. No republishing, nothing. All the covers are mine. The jacket copies are all mine. The copywriting, all that. It's all me. I didn't pay anyone to do any of it. I learned a lot about cover art and I learned a lot about building the books through working with my editor, and I think that's one of the big bonuses of being a trad author is you learn a lot about how the publishing industry works, and going indie from being trad, you do kind of have an advantage. As being an indie author, now you know what it's like to be a trad author. You already know what it's like to be a trad author. You're taking that experience with you. So I published book three, the freakishly titled, book in 2020. And sadly, my editor didn't get to see that manuscript. Well, maybe she does now. Maybe she is seeing it now. Um, but that's, yeah, that was my journey.
A
And now
long and
here I
heavy
am.
journey.
But it was worth it. It was very, very, very worth it. It's so worth being an author. Whether you're trad or indie, it doesn't matter. All that matters is you're telling a story.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think you have had such a long and tumultuous journey with being trad and then being indie and everything you kind of went through with that. It was a lot of ups and downs. Um, what is the biggest challenge of being an indie horror author, and what's been your biggest payoff?
I think the biggest challenge of being an indie author is just the marketing space, is not knowing, where to start or what to do or anything like that. You don't have a marketing budget. You don't have a marketing team. You don't have all of those assets or resources that a publishing house would have. Like you're left to do this on your own, and sometimes it is a little overwhelming. But this was back in like 2009. I think the space was so different back then. where we didn't really have, a whole lot of this book talk and, bookstagram and, I mean, it was there, somewhat, but it's evolved so much that it's so accessible now. Like
Mm.
it is a lot easier. It's still, challenging, but it is a lot easier for an indie author to be close to as successful as a trad author. And there's room for that kind of growth, which is why nowadays I just learned that there's such a thing as a hybrid author, which now it sounds like we're getting into urban fantasy.
A
Hybrid.
hybrid author.
Yeah, hybrid author, where an author is both trad and indie. So like they have some books that are through a house, and they also have some books that are, completely independently published by the author. And makes sense. I mean, I never thought of that. It is possible you can do that, and there's nothing that says you can't. There's no contract that I've seen, from a publishing house that says you can't publish independently, other books. Like if you get a 3 book deal, it's probably the particular arc or, story. Like this would be a 3 book deal. Like these 3 books here would be a 3 book deal, for a house. If they wanted that, then this is what I would be contracted to write, 3 books that are in this. Like I could publish this one independently if I wanted. It's not going to matter. You know,
Very cool.
I mean, that's how it goes, and learning about distribution, that was another challenge. How do bookstores get their books? What's the best way bookstores get their books? Like it's such a learning curve, man. But once you learn, then you're pretty much sailing. You're pretty much off to the races, and then how much you grow just depends on you. You know,
Have you ever got any of your books into a bookstore since being independently published?
they are in several bookstores now. They're in a bookshop in Smyrna, Tennessee, known as the Spine Bookshop. You can find the copies there. They're in the Faded Pages bookstore as well in Kansas City, Missouri.
Hmm.
And they were through wholesale. The owner, who's a great friend of mine, she's such a lovely lady. Absolutely loved my work. And I'm learning how, relationships are built. This is what a publishing house will do too. They will build relationships with booksellers and bookstores and bookshops and chains, get the distribution out there. That's how they do their job is creating those relationships and pitching the books, and then they get on the shelves. And I'm doing that too. I am a publishing house now. That's technically what every indie author is. They are their own publishing house. Um, but I'm at Faded Pages. I was also at Donnie's Book Club, and these are little, pop-up, bookshops. Um, I'm going to be in the Inkbound Society over in Ireland soon, and there's a couple of other stores. Oh, D&K Books is going to be housing my books in October as well. I'm actually going to be traveling there on the 19th to drop off books and do a Q&A and a meet and greet and a signing. They're like sickeningly excited to see me. And I'm bringing hopefully a good portion of my stock. I'm kind of running a little low, so I'm going to have to like order more stock and hopefully it gets in by that time. I'm getting a little nervous, but I should be okay because I can order some books and I have those in stock. That's the other side of it is having my own stock of books and then trying to keep up on that stock. Because if I'm going to other bookstores or fairs or festivals or cons, I still need more stock. So as it dwindles, then I have to order more. It's just there's a lot of financials that are involved in a publishing house that people aren't really privy to. They only see like on the surface. It's like, oh, someone's doing the cover art. Oh, that looks nice. Someone's doing the copywriting, on the back, the jacket copy, the blurb. Oh, that's lovely, but they don't see like the inner workings of like what it takes to distribute the book and, getting the copies, the correct amount of copies, making sure you're not over, supplying, so then bookstores then, return, copies and then they get a refund. There's a lot of profit and loss, that comes with being a book publishing house. And it's such a learning curve.
It is such a learning curve because what you've just mentioned is that going through everything from being traditionally published to being an indie published author is that you have really experience both sides to the fullest. And it sounds like you've really fully embraced the indie path and
Yeah, I
in
have.
its entirety. You mentioned that you have the book signing on October 19th, and that was at D&K Books. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
D&K Books is an indie bookstore in Roseville, Michigan, and I happened to, reach out to them, saying, do you have a horror section? And basically they said they would love to have my work on there after hearing about, the work that I've done, and the subject came up that I could make a trip up there because I was going to be kind of in that area already because I was invited to go to a haunted book festival in Flint, Michigan. And super fun. There's going to be like artists there and other vendors selling Halloween stuff, and there will be other authors there. And it's just for 3 hours. And it's going to be on the 18th of October. And of course, I'm going to bring my stock, and gonna do the thing, D&K, I said I could easily make a trip from Flint to Roseville the next day and make it, a full-blown road trip, basically a mini book tour. And they said, we would love to have you come to the bookstore. And it's just me. It would be just me going into their bookstore. And they're a full-fledged indie bookstore. And their space looks fabulous. It's just so awesome. So yeah, that's what I'm doing on the 19th, the fair on the 18th. I'm also going to be in Smyrna, Tennessee next April for an author con, and I'm going to be speaking on 3 panels there as well.
Yes, I saw that here. The second annual AuthorCon in Smyrna, Tennessee. I found that while I was doing my research. So I was
So
going
you
to
found
ask
it?
you about that one too.
I never brought that up to you, did I? I don't think
No,
I
you
did.
didn't. I found
Oh,
it.
yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to have a table there, and it's from the 17th through the 19th, I think, of April. So April 17th through the 19th, they're going to be at least, I want to say at least 30 authors there, including me. And we'd expect to see at least, I don't know, 200 people, going there to, talk books and shop books and, just explore all the authors that are there. There are going to be some authors that I know that are there. There's going to be narrators as well. So it's going to be a lot of voice actors. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be ridiculous. And the 3 panels that I will be speaking on are the fantasy panel, because I grew up with epic fantasy. Lord of the Rings, man, J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis. I will be speaking in the poetry panel because I was once a poet. I still am a poet. And of course, the horror panel, which I can't discount the horror panel. There will be a narrator panel there, so you get to talk to a lot of the narrators, and they're super cool. I love narrators. I love audiobooks. And Sealed by Stone will have an audiobook version as well.
That's so exciting that Sealed by Stone is also going to have an audiobook version. For
Yep,
myself, I have many books behind me, but I tend to listen to audiobooks more often than I read physical books because it's just more accessible. And I love
it
that you've
is.
really applied that accessibility to your books.
Yeah, I grew up with audiobooks as well. They were kind of like a gateway to the paperbacks and the hardcovers for me, and vice versa. Like if I read a book, I'm like, I want the audiobook, so I'll get the audiobook. So I grew up with that because the family, we would always travel to our summer home in Wisconsin, and my dad would pop in an audiobook on cassette, back in the day when we had cassettes. Like, what the heck? Um, and I would listen to an audiobook, and it would be so cool listening to an audiobook. So Amora Lux, who is on TT on TikTok, um, she's the narrator. She is contracted to do the audiobook version of Sealed by Stone. She plays the main character. You can actually get a sample of her voice on my TikTok page because I posted her voice speaking a couple of lines of narration that were in the manuscript. So you can get an idea or a feel or the flavor of the horror. She's so bought into, and her voice is lovely. She likes making fun of me on how lovely her voice is. But the pre-orders for Sealed by Stone will include the audiobook. And I'm like happy to offer that. And she was giddy when she heard that, the audiobook would be included in pre-orders. She's like, "Oh my God." So that means, when you get your paperback as a pre-order, you will also get the audiobook version on the 31st of October. Or
Amazing.
somewhere around there. I'm gonna set it up, where it arrives when it should, for those who pre-order. But yeah, if you go on my website, and it's the first link you'll see, which is a promo link. And I'm like, you know what, that's cool. We should do that. Anyone who pre-orders, they need to get a little something else. Like, because it's not like, I'm gonna run out of stock. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like, oh, there's only 20, no, no, we're gonna be honest here. Like, there's an unlimited supply of these books. I just have to get them manufactured. That's all. That's all it is. There's not ever gonna run out. Never. And we got to be transparent and honest here. So I'm not going to say there's 20 copies left for pre-order and you get this. Like, no, 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 no. No, you're going to get something extra with the pre-order of the book. And for the next works that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be doing the same thing. So something extra, probably an audiobook. I don't know. We'll figure it.
And I have two, as we're coming into closing with this, I have two questions left for you.
Sure.
This is your Halloween 2025 gift to readers. What emotions do you most hope they walk away with when they close the book? Dread, awe, catharsis, or maybe something a little more twisted?
Catharsis and hideous illumination. How's that for like contrast right there?
I love that. Hideous
And
illumination and catharsis.
And I say hideous illumination because we often get terrified, of what we can't see. But when we see what terrifies us and it's scary looking, it's kind of cathartic at the same time. You go,
Hmm.
whoa, So hideous illumination.
I love that. And if you could whisper one dark wish for your horror legacy, what would you want Pierre Roustan to be remembered as?
Oh my God, you are killing me with these questions. Jesus, Alanna, my God, what? Uh, just remember, you need the darkness to see the light.
You need the darkness to see the light. I love that.
That one just came out of nowhere. I did not plan for that at all. Like there was nothing. That just came out of nowhere.
I
We'll
think
go
that
with that. We'll
that
stick with
really
that.
resonates because you don't know this about me, but I actually have a tattoo.
Oh, okay.
And it says, if you look for the light, you will often find it. If you focus on the darkness, it is all you will ever see.
I did not know you had that tattoo. Holy moly. Am I a prophet?
You're a prophet and a poet, and you didn't even know it.
Oh, oh, you nailed it. Oh my God. Okay, no, I need to go to like Canada over in the West Coast, like, meet you and give you a hug. That's cool. Thank you so much. Like, that's cool.
It is cool. I love
That's
that
very,
you
very cool.
like that for your dark wish is that
Sure.
you
I
would be
mean,
remembered as if you have some darkness, you'll be able to find the light, and you can't find the light without a little bit of darkness, because I think that is a thread that goes through all of your books. Because if I go through here, I even have do in one of my many pages.
one of your many pages.
Of in the Cain letters a supernatural horror and dark fantasy. In the sequel with Chimera Falls, you get darker and more intense with a lot of your demons and the way you go into your books. And
Mhm.
then with Maluminous,
That was good.
Maluminous. You even get a much more darker presence as you go into vampirism and a supernatural evil that is then included in the Cain letters. So you have this darkness thread that has really gone through
Mhm.
all of your books. But then there's always that little bit of catharsis and that light that you always bring in to have that bit of a change. So I think that that as your dark wish just really resonates beautifully with who you are as an author.
Yep, and book four is going to be worked on and should come out next year, and it's the final book.
Book four is the final book, so this will be a four-part series. That's very cool.
Correct. Yep, I'm currently working on it right now, and I'm on chapter 5, so I need to finish it because everyone's also hampering me, for book 4 right now. After reading book 3, they're like, "No, now you need to write book 4." Fair warning, disclaimer: you probably won't like me after reading book 3, but that's okay.
Does it
It's
end
totally
on a
cool.
cliffhanger?
Slight cliffhanger. It's not so much the cliffhanger; it's the amount of trauma that I give my characters.
That's fair. That's reasonable.
I put them through so much freaking trauma that people are like, no, no. And my wife did that, when I wrote it in 2019 or 2020 or something. Before it got published, I gave her the manuscript. She read it and she then put it down. And I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was to the effect of, well, now you just have to write book 4. It was 5 years ago. She's been bugging me for 5 years. So I need to finish the book and then she'll probably be the first one to read it. And then of course I'm going to have ARC readers too. And if you're interested in ARC, read, be looking me up because I got like 10 projects coming, your way. So people are going to be
10
reading.
projects. You're busy.
Yeah, that's about 10 projects. They're ideas that pop in my head and I write them down, then I sketch them out and outline them out, and they're lovely projects. And they just come out of nowhere, and the fourth book is going to be the latest. Sealed by Stone I finished in August. So
Wow. And so you
yeah.
finished Sealed by Stone in August. I was going to ask you to tease what might be up next, but you have Sealed by Stone. Pre-orders are available until the 31st of October. You have the fourth book coming from your um, current trilogy, which will be a four-piece set.
Yep.
And then you also have that contemporary Christmas one that I kind of pulled out of you that you're working on
Yes.
earlier.
Yes.
Um, and now I want
Um,
to invite you to leave a message to horror readers this Halloween. Is there anything you would like to invite, maybe challenge them, or anything for any of your horror readers that coming?
for any of the horror readers that are out there, explore. Explore what could be, explore what's unknown, really reach into, a lot of the things that we often do enjoy, like the H.P. Lovecrafts and the Stephen Kings and the Dean Koontz, and just celebrate it. It's a
Mhm.
time to celebrate, for the horror genre because it's, so prevalent in all these other genres too. I mean, I'm writing a dark romance. I'll be writing a
Ooh,
dark romance next year as well. I'm writing it after I finish book 4. And book 4 is titled Brithanon, the Final Covenant. That's the name of it. Sounds really epic. I know.
very epic.
Um, the dark romance is called Kill the Envious Moon. I'm going to be writing a Western horror book. I'm going to be writing another urban fantasy that's going to kind of remind you of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I like those types of work. And two mystery novels I'm going to be writing as well. And of course, the adult urban fantasy, that's Christmas themed that you got out of me. That one's coming out as well. Explore. Horror is such a lovely, lovely genre because you can inject it into literally anything because it is part of the human condition and it is a very, very poignant, rich, theme that, exists in our psyche that should never be forgotten because with that fear comes the will and the need to rise up against it and face it, and then you become stronger because of it. So just
Absolutely.
enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Like there's so much coming out now.
You have so many projects coming out. You've got 10 in the works. You just gave us such a
Something like that.
great example of what we can all be expecting from the amazing Pierre Roustan. I can't wait to see what is going to be coming, especially with your fourth book coming out and now the first or this 2.5 that you have with Sealed by Stone. And or so this is going to be a ton of fun. I want to thank you for coming on Storytime with Alanna Percival. This has been such an amazing interview to be able to get to know you and what you're all about. So thank you for sharing so much with us.
You rock. You totally rock, man. You're awesome because you are the people that make things work so well for us indie authors, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Like
Thank
what you
you.
do is stellar. You are excellent.
Thank you so much, Pierre. This has been fantastic. I want to invite everyone. Thank you so much for your time. All our time is always precious to us, so thank you for spending it with us as we have interviewed Pierre and got to know a lot about his books. And I invite you to come back to Storytime with Alanna Percival and see our next guest. And remember, Chimera Falls, the Cane Letters, and Malumbras are all available now, and Sealed by Stone is available for pre-order until the 31st. And then that also comes with the audiobook. You can get signed editions from Pierre's website from medium.com, Pierre-Roustan. The descriptions will all be, or all of the links to everything for Pierre will be in the descriptions below this video. Definitely go take a look and keep your eye out on Amazon as well for all of his books.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much,
everyone.
Pierre.
And I appreciate all of you. You guys are lovely.
We appreciate you too. Thank you so much, and you take care. Bye for now.
La da 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 da.